Power in the modern world is no longer wielded by kings or governments alone. It is concentrated in the hands of a new aristocracy, the owners and controllers of global financialized capital, or OCGFC. Today, we'll explore the rise of corporate power in America, its subjugation of the global South, the evolution of neoliberalism, and the emergence of a new class of elites, the a-national OCGFC, who are untethered from any single nation's interests. The story begins in the 17th century with the birth of the modern corporation, entities granted charters by monarchs to conduct trade and colonization. By the 19th century, corporations began to dominate America's industrial landscape. Key industries, railroads, steel, oil, were controlled by powerful industrialists like Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Vanderbilt, whose corporations amassed unprecedented wealth. In 1886, the U.S. Supreme Court inadvertently granted corporations the rights of personhood under the 14th Amendment. This legal precedent, though technically misinterpreted, allowed corporations to shield themselves from excessive regulation, enabling them to grow unchecked. By the early 20th century, American corporations extended their power beyond U.S. borders. The United Fruit Company became synonymous with corporate imperialism, exploiting Latin American land and labor to supply cheap goods to the United States. When local governments resisted, the U.S. often intervened militarily or orchestrated coups, ensuring that corporate interests prevailed. In 1954, the CIA backed a coup in Guatemala to overthrow democratically elected President Jacobo Arbenz, whose land reforms threatened United Fruit's dominance. This pattern repeated across the region, turning much of Latin America into a neo-colonial playground for American corporations. The 1970s brought economic crises that paved the way for neoliberalism, a political and economic ideology championing free markets, deregulation, privatization, and austerity. In 1971, President Nixon ended the Bretton Woods system, detaching the dollar from gold and ushering in the era of financialization. Financialization transformed the economy. Corporations shifted focus from producing goods to maximizing shareholder value, often through speculative investments. Wall Street eclipsed Main Street as the epicenter of economic activity, concentrating wealth in the hands of the financial elite. In his 1961 farewell address, President Dwight Eisenhower warned of the military-industrial complex, a symbiotic relationship between the defense industry, the military, and the government. Despite his warnings, the Cold War fueled massive defense spending, enriching corporations like Lockheed Martin and Boeing. Today, the military-industrial complex has merged with the tech sector, creating a digital surveillance state and expanding corporate power globally. In the 21st century, a new class of elite emerged, the a-national OCGFC. Unlike their predecessors, these elites are not tied to any single nation's economy or interests. They operate globally, leveraging financial systems, supply chains, and tax havens to maximize profits. A-national elites use globalization and technology to evade national regulation and accountability. They manipulate markets, exploit labor across borders, and influence international policy through institutions like the IMF and World Bank. The rise of the a-national OCGFC has exacerbated global inequality. National economies suffer as wealth is extracted and concentrated in fewer hands. Environmental degradation accelerates, driven by unaccountable global supply chains. And political systems are destabilized, as corporations wield more power than governments. Yet resistance is growing. Grassroots movements, worker collectives, and alternative economic models are challenging the hegemony of corporate power. The rise of corporate power and the national OCGFC marks a turning point in history, but with awareness and collective action we can confront this new aristocracy and strive for a world where power is accountable and shared equitably. The question remains, will we allow a few to dominate, or will we reclaim the power for the many? Subscribe for more insights on global power and resistance.